Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Steve Zec. Hello. And Alex Bonilla.
Hola.
And we're here to discuss the latest animated film from Warner Brothers, Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Spoiler warning, we will be getting into spoilers in this podcast. Thankfully, for those who haven't seen this movie, we're going to have a brief, 5 to 10 minute discussion about the film in non-spoiler terms. So feel free to listen into that before deciding whether or not you want to see this movie. You can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, where we appreciate your star ratings, or search for Overly Animated on your favorite podcatcher. So let's just briefly talk about this movie in non-spoilers, because I do want to get into spoilers, and don't worry, I will be mentioning when we get into them, so you won't be spoiled unless you want to be. This is a spoiler consenting zone, all right? We won't infringe on your if you don't want it. Anyway, that's getting into other stuff. So I want to briefly talk about the box office for this movie, just to start us off, because I just heard it before we hit record on this. I was told by Alex what it was, and it's not good. Not good at all. Alex, can you tell me how much this movie made this weekend?
Well, it's estimated, according to Box Office Mojo, to finish at $10.5 million this weekend. For comparison, Hotel Transylvania 3, which I think has been out for 2 weeks already, it made $12 million. So that's still ahead of Teen Titans Go, which is premiering this weekend.
But even then, 12 and 10, that is not strong numbers for an animated movie. Especially, I'm more worried about Hotel Transylvania after hearing that. Because that movie's far more expensive.
Weekend,
oh wait, third week. I thought you said it was at its first.
No, it opened at 44 million.
Okay, that makes more sense. Oh, that makes more sense. That only opened at 12. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, what I'm saying is Teen Titans Go, it's premiering this week, and it's still finished less than Hotel Transylvania 3, which has been out for several weeks already.
Yeah, I mean, in context, just to give you guys an idea, Hotel Transylvania probably cost a lot more to make than Teen Titans. You know, because it's computer generated, it's not 2D animation. I mean, not to say that Teen Titans isn't, probably didn't have a bigger budget than it did probably have a bigger budget than its TV counterpart. But even then, I don't know if it would cost the same as a typical animated movie. I think it would cost a little bit less, don't you guys think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Once again, according to Box Office Mojo, I don't know how accurate these numbers are, but the production budget for this movie is $10 million. So it's decent.
All right. Again, we also have to add a third additional to that budget, because that will go to marketing. Exactly, to marketing. So it hasn't made its money back.
Well, it's definitely not Disney when it comes to knowing how to promote its stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still, but I feel like it's still it's Warner Brothers, which, I mean, they can promote a movie. It's not
I'm talking about, animated stuff. I'm talking just specifically.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think animation in terms of marketing, it's I think marketing, it's its own thing. I don't think there's a specific animation marketing department within Warner Brothers. I think it's all just marketing. So I don't know. I wouldn't doubt the marketing. I just think it's not the best number.
Want to look up and see how well Space Jam did his first weekend?
Well, why?
Why? That came left field. I was not expecting Space Jam to be the movie that you said.
That is from 1994.
Yeah, that is a different market. It has Michael Jordan as the star factor. That is a different movie. Okay.
Well, just so you know, that's a big Warner Brothers movie. The last Warner movie I remember.
20 years ago.
Oh, okay. Okay, we're moving on from this. Okay, let's talk about this movie in terms of, just very briefly, in terms of our initial impressions and expectations going into this movie. Just very briefly, tell me what you thought. Did you like it? Did you not? Alex, let's start with you.
Okay, so I'm a resident Steven Universe fan on this podcast. So the Steven Universe fandom has some sometimes hostile reaction towards Teen Titans Go due to Cartoon Network's preferential treatment of that show in at times in the network's history. So I went in with low expectations because really I don't have any ill will towards it, but it's not a show that has ever called my attention. And I think that this movie feels just a very an embodiment of where we are with the superhero genre in terms of the meta-ness of it. Like we've gotten to Deadpool, we are inserting more meta stuff into the Marvel movies, and now DC with this movie is trying to be self-aware, and it kind of just feels like, well, like this is just another step in that trend of like making fun of itself and getting a lot of humor out of that. Even if you're not going to address that in your actual movies, so you're just going to leave it be like that, whatever. And like the humor in this, like in the show, I know that it's a stereotype that like it's like lowbrow humor. They do a bunch of fart jokes and jokes about waffles and things like that. And I think for the most part, they clamp down on it. Like there's a couple of sequences that do go in that direction, but I think overall they try to keep their humor more focused on the meta-ness of it, so that helps its case in that regard. And I think that also when it tries to do emotional stuff, this movie sort of works too, especially with the main character. I think that when it gets to that point, like even if I don't care about the characters themselves, but the movie in a vacuum does enough to get me to care about their arc, so to speak. So like in the end, it's a functional movie. Like I got laughs out of it. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, it's just a humor that doesn't really extend itself beyond what I expected out of a. Like this definitely feels very made for TV in a way. So like it feels that way, and that's fine. But it's not something that's stood out to me. But because I had low expectations, I ended up being okay with it.
Gotcha. I'm still reeling over the fact that you're saying that the potty humor was clamped down for the movie. Because it's still a lot for me. So the fact that it's clamped down, that TV show makes me scared.
I was expecting 80 minutes of that. So like boy. Getting 25%, like that's a lot less than I thought it was going to be.
Wow. Okay, Steve, what did you think of Teen Titans Go to the Movies?
I'm coming from a similar place as Alex, but mainly because I'm a big fan of the 2003 series and also the Marv Wolfman comics, so I'm very familiar with Teen Titans. And let me say, it's kind of the opposite of My Little Pony the movie in terms of how it compares to the TV show, because I think the movie was much better than most of the episodes of the Teen Titans Go TV series. I thought the quality was much more upscale. It went just a little bit better. I thought the characters are definitely more likable. Robin especially more likable, because in the TV series, most of the time they're very unlikable. They're outright bullies at times. So they did a much better job than they normally do on the TV show. So I'll give them that. And I did like some of the songs. The upbeat, inspirational song about life is so catchy. I just keep playing that over and over again. So yeah. I liked it, actually, compared to the TV series. It's not the greatest movie in the world, but it's passable.
Okay. Cool. Well, I came into this, I hadn't watched Teen Titans Go. I had watched the original Teen Titans animated show when I was younger, and was one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
But I wasn't familiar with Teen Titans Go. I mean, I knew it existed. I didn't know what what humor was. Even though I'm a fan of Steven Universe, I'm not too deep into the, I guess, rivalry between these two shows. These two children desperate for Daddy Cartoon Network's attention.
Pretty much.
I didn't know about that. So I don't know. I wasn't, if anything, I was just interested to see what we would get from this. I will say, I mean, there are moments in this movie that made me laugh. There are certain aspects of this movie that I think work really well with I don't know, in the grand scheme of like all the superhero movies we get. Like I appreciate a lot of some of the meta humor that we got, and it knows how to poke fun at itself. There are more elements of this movie that didn't work for me than the elements that did. So while I was pleasantly surprised to some extent by the 80-minute mark, I was like, okay, I need to leave. I was like, it's time for me to go. Like because I basically walked back home after the movie, and there was a moment where I was just like, my brain hurt. I guess is the best way to describe it. I guess because I don't know. I was just like, wow, that was just really lowbrow humor for a long time. And it took a while for me to readjust.
You obviously have not seen the TV show like we have.
Obviously, I haven't seen the TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
worse.
instead of like, it's less of a jab. It's more just because, you know, for some people, and some people in the audience were like cracking up for it. It's just more of a culture clash than a jab at them. It's more of just like, my brain was not used to this type of humor. It hasn't been used to this type of humor for a long time. So it was kind of like, whoa.
I do want to ask, well, what kind of audience did you have at your theater?
It was a mix. There were a couple like solo adults like me that were going to see it. I mean, I don't think any of them were like me that were like writing things down and taking notes. But and then there were like it wasn't a full theater, but it was like 50 adults and then 50 kids, and the kids were very loud. Very loud. At one point, but here's the thing, like at one point there was a kid behind me, right behind me, the row behind me, who started singing the ABCs. Like, loud. They started singing the ABCs, and the mom tried to shush them, and then they start to cry because they wanted to sing the ABCs. And I was just like, just let them sing it. It was a good distraction. It actually like made me like, breathe a little bit based on what I was seeing. I was like, oh, okay, I want them to keep singing because it will like kind of break this kind of space, this shock that I'm in, this culture shock that I'm in. That I keep
I don't think there's an alphabet joke in this movie, so like I'm not sure where they got that from.
Kids want to do what they want to do.
That's why
I bring that up because like also in my theater is also half full, and like the only kind of younger audience were like kids like 8 years and younger, like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. Like there were no teens in there, and I was the only solo adult. So like I guess seeing that just kind of put into perspective like what the target audience is for Teen Titans Go, and it informs you on perhaps why they lean on this kind of humor because it works for them. Like there were laughs from the kids in the theater, so like if it works, it works, I guess.
My theater, I think there's only like one other like group that was there besides me, and it was this family, had a couple of kids, and for the most part they were well behaved, but I get it. Believe me, I prefer to see these kids' movies when they're at school or late at night, when I can watch peacefully and quietly without the little brats getting on one's nerves.
Look, I appreciate the singing. Again, I appreciated them singing ABC because I needed that kind of sense of like, oh, right, reality. So before we get into spoilers, I just want to very briefly talk about the voice cast of this movie. Not even like the main cast, because they're the same cast that we're familiar with since 2003. I just wanted to point out that Nicolas Cage voiced Superman. Now,
and Halsey voiced Wonder Woman.
Yes. But no, you don't understand. Like Halsey voicing Wonder Woman, that's cute. That's awesome. Good on her. Like only very few people get to say that they played Wonder Woman in something. Nicolas Cage played Superman. People, the history behind this casting, okay? Superman there was going to be a Superman movie directed by Tim Burton, and it was about to be made, and Nicolas Cage, at this point, he wasn't a meme. He was at the peak of his career. He was going to play Superman, and he loved Superman. He was like, this is my guy. This is the character. I love this character. He named his son Kal-El. Like, this is like, whoa. And it didn't happen. Like, there are pictures of his Superman suit, and it's this like weird, like Tim Burton-esque suit, and it's so interesting and fascinating. This was happening like after, I think, Tim Burton's Batman had come out. So already there was
this
like
was the late 90s.
Yeah, late
right?
90s. But it was like at that point. So, and it was going to happen and then it didn't happen. And then all we have is this picture, and there was a documentary about this. I think it was, what happened to Superman?
Superman lives? Or the death of Superman
lives or something. That's what it was called, and it looked so cool. And it basically became this kind of cult thing of like Nicolas Cage was going to play Superman. And the fact that he got to voice him in this movie, like if there's of anything that they did, the one masterstroke was casting him as Superman.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was brilliant, like chef's kiss, mwah, like perfection.
Also, his son, you've already mentioned his son is named Kal-El Cage, and Kal-El plays young Bruce Wayne in this movie. Well, that's is that a spoiler?
I mean, is it? We don't know. Let's get into spoilers. Let's get into them, all right? So, for anyone who hasn't watched this movie, leave now. Unless you want to be spoiled. But get out now. We're gonna talk spoilers. Go away. All right? Just go. All right, 3, 2, 1, spoiler time. I mean, yes, he did voice young Bruce. He did voice. And we'll get into that little sequence in a bit. But so let's just kind of break down what happens in this movie, all right? So the Titans are not taken seriously by anyone, right? Because all they do is joke around. You know, all they do is fart jokes and raps and whatnot. So the Justice League, like, tells them, like, yeah, like, you guys aren't superheroes. Like, you don't even have your own movie. And this remark is kind of taken to the extreme. So the Titans, like, after failing to fight this, like, balloon guy, failing to fight, what's his name from Big Hero 6, after they don't stop him, they decide to go to, the premiere of the latest Batman movie, Batman Again. Of course. And first they're not allowed in because they're not on the list. They try and sneak in anyway. They get in, and then Robin is humiliated when he mistakes a trailer for the Batman utility belt as a trailer for his own movie.
Oh.
So I wanted this opening very quickly establishes the humor we're going to get in this movie. It establishes like the meta references, all this stuff. It establishes the music. I was not expecting music. Is the TV show like musical?
Once in a while, I guess they would do that, but the songs are not as good as they were in the movies, I'll tell you that. I mean, most of the songs are really silly, like the Waffle song and what have you, so... Yeah,
I think there's a song about burritos, too.
Yeah, it's really stupid.
Okay, well, it's not a musical. Well, this movie, I think, would fall into the category of a musical because they break out into song.
Can I mention one thing, though? The person who does the voice of the director, Jay Wilson, is voice of Anna in Frozen.
Yep,
and I was hoping, when they did one musical in front of her, I was hoping to make a reference. He would tell him, what's with the music? What was all the singing? What is this, a Disney movie? I was hoping they would have made a reference to that. That would have been great.
That would have been cool, but
yeah.
So
Anna in the movie, you don't do nothing with that.
But I mean, yeah.
Well, one thing I want to point out, recently we got news from Cartoon Network that Steven Universe is also getting its own movie, and that there's details floating around that it would also be a more musical style thing. So I wonder if that's Cartoon Network's strategy, like turning their shows into musical feature films, like that.
But I mean, it's like, I don't think it's a strategy. I just think that because Disney has kind of brainwashed people into thinking that animated movies need to be musicals. Now everybody thinks that animated movies must have songs in them. Like that's what annoys me. It's like not every movie needs to have a song. Look, I'm a fan of musicals, but I'm a fan of diversity. I don't need a song in every freaking animated movie, especially in this movie. Like, look, sure, maybe the songs are a little bit higher grade, but they still weren't great songs. Like, they were just like, I mean, like, in terms of just like like in terms of like singing, like the emotion and the emotional like levity of the song, like I just was like, okay, like this is silly.
Okay, I'll take you to court with the upbeat song about life. I love that song, but other than that, okay.
I don't even remember that
way
song.
Too long.
Not just that, I don't even remember it. It didn't leave any impression on me. They all sounded the same. The only one that left an impression on me was the rap, because I was like, okay, they're rapping their names. They're basically doing a Pokemon rap, but for Teen Titans.
The only I put here in the middle, there's a note I just have in the middle here. Too much singing. That being said, superhero movie is okay. So I think that was the only song I liked. the solo Robin one.
And one thing I don't get though is, the voice Raven. Tara Strong sings in this one, yet she's not allowed to sing in a My Little Pony movie. What is up with that? Very inconsistent.
That is, I don't know, maybe it's like contract obligations.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm assuming for Kristen Bell. Like when Disney, like she was like, hey Disney, I'm gonna be like voicing a character in this movie. They're like, all right, fine, but you can't sing. And you can't reference like our animated movies. Like maybe, like, you know.
They referenced the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at one point in this thing, and they referenced Marvel. So
I don't know. Like maybe, yeah, but like you won't see like, maybe in a Marvel movie, you'll get a reference to some like animated Warner Brothers movie, but you won't get a reference to DC. Whereas in an animated, like, I don't know, maybe the rivalries are like between animation studios versus rivalries between.
I don't know.
I don't know. Point is,
I don't know how they got Stan Lee in this movie. How they got away with that?
I don't think that was him though. Like,
I think it was.
Yeah.
Was it him voicing himself?
I'm pretty sure. But,
yeah.
I thought it was like someone else voicing him. Oh wow, they actually got him. Like that's amazing. But yeah, so that I think that was like the winner in terms of references, was getting Stan Lee there. I was like, that's brilliant. That's like, that's when you know. That's when you know. But anyway, let's get into what I think is like the most controversial part of this film. So after the Teen Titans decide they basically decide that they need to get their own movie, right? To be able to be taken seriously as superheroes, which by the way, the premise of this, which is superheroes are getting their own movies, the fact that it's very meta in that sense, like it's open to so many jokes, so many references. And I wish that they had gone a little bit further, if they had actually like, I don't know, I just think that this was ripe for like the best, like this, they set up the stage for like the best sort of like referential humor that you could do. And for some things they nailed it, but they didn't really take it as far as I wanted them to.
Yeah, because like
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, like there is a joke, right? Like where the Justice League is saying that they have their movies, and then Green Lantern's like, there was a Green Lantern movie, but we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like
but I kind of
like
wanted them to go further. I was like, instead of we don't talk about it, but it was like, it wasn't me, and then look at the camera or something. You know, I wanted them to be a little bit more referential, but in terms of real world referential,
they couldn't,
and how the movie industry works versus, like let's make jokes about friends.
They didn't know references to all the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, which would have been great, like, you know, like Batman and Robin, Batman Forever, which are known for being terrible.
Yeah, or you know, it would have been really cool to do like maybe like do a reference about like even just like, oh, like I don't know, like I was waiting for there to be like a thing about like, instead of like the sequence that we see of the trailers of like his utility belt, his like Batmobile like trailers, maybe one of like the Joker, and then like they're doing one of the Suicide Squad, now one of the Joker, and then Robin being like, really? You'll do one over a villain? Or like do one about like, oh, we're doing one about Venom, and he's like, he's not even the superhero, like he's not even whatever, you know, and like kind of like try and like do like make fun of like Disney for like, and Disney and Sony and, well, no longer Fox, but whatever, about like, I don't know, I wanted them to be funnier and like been a bit more like funny toward the movie industry and how complicated and silly it is versus, you know, like,
yeah,
I don't know. I just think it could have been a little bit more higher brow, I think.
Yeah, I think that desire goes more into just the general nature of what kind of humor this movie is going for, because by doing it with Alfred, with a utility belt, with a car, like it's
Alfred's
going for
fine, but the utility belt and the Batmobile, I was like, okay.
Well, like, it's going for absurdist humor. And this entire movie, like, it just makes you think, wow, this is absurd. We're actually doing this. Whereas, like, the kind of jokes you're referring to are more like realistic humor. Like, that's humor that actually gets to the heart of what the point is. but the movie isn't interested in that. The movie is just kind of going for like the most out there joke possible, like to the point where it no longer hurts them to do it.
Oh, they could also reference how Hollywood is very shy of making movies about female superheroes. How like Wonder Woman was like this big deal because they don't want to make a movie like Black Widow or Supergirl or Batgirl. They trying to stay away from that traditionally.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of like very briefly go, like in a way, it's like, well, it took a while. Like when Wonder Woman says, "Well, it took a while, but I finally got mine," and it's like you could have made a joke out of it. You could have done like something really funny and cutting. Anyway, but yeah, so the Teen Titans, they decide like we need to make a movie. In order to get a movie, they need an arch nemesis. So they go to Star Labs to try and stop Slade from stealing a crystal. Slade. They tried to stop Slade from stealing a crystal. But he easily gets away. Yes.
Can I mention though, I haven't heard about this, talking about voice cast, that they could not get Ron Perlman to voice Slade. They had to get Will Arnett, and
who voices Batman in the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah. I know this is a different type of character, different type of show, it was a comedy, but still, one thing I say about the show, most of the time, they get all the voice actors from the original show to voice their characters, and if they can't, then those characters are mute. So they kind of broke their little tradition there.
Yeah, well, I don't mind. No offense to Ron Perlman, but I mean, like Will Arnett's kind of, I feel like a bigger name, no?
And also, Will Arnett is experienced in comedy, and to be honest, Slade is kind of one of my favorites in this movie, just because the combination of the voice and the delivery of the meta jokes he gives, and just his general disdain for the main characters, like that all works together as a good villain and one who's entertaining. Like I want more Slade in this movie.
I'm willing to buy though, just different universes. Some characters have different voices in different universes, but if we ever get like a season 6 of the real Teen Titans, it better be Ron Perlman playing Slade in that show. Will Arnett can play Slade in Teen Titans.
Look, we're getting ahead of ourselves with the Teen Titans. So, we'll save that for later. But yeah, so I agree. Slade, not anyone else, but Slade was actually like very fun. That was like a very fun moment, like them going up against him doing like the mind tricks. It's silly, but at least it was funny.
When we get to the twist, though, about Slade, though, towards the end, I just mention that theory?
We'll get to that, okay? Just wait, we'll get to that.
I have a theory I want to get into, but...
We'll get to that. But yeah, so they try to stop Slade. He gets away. The next day, the Titans try to cheer Robin up by showing him a homemade movie, but he stops watching. Instead, the Titans go to Hollywood to try and get a real movie made. Jade will...
Well, just in that sequence, there's a lot of little jokes I just want to point out. First of all, Robin opens that with a nightmare inspired by The Lion King, where he's a baby.
I know. Which, all right, fine. Because I was going to have like a section at the end where we were going to talk about our best jokes, and my 2 best jokes are basically in these 2 sequences, but we'll get into it now.
Okay.
All right, so Robin essentially has a nightmare leading the night after Slade gets away. He has a nightmare where essentially it's the Circle of Life opening sequence in The Lion King. And it's brilliant, and I'll tell you why it's brilliant. Because one, it's a nightmare, right? And he's having a nightmare about Disney. Right? Disney, as in DC versus Disney, aka Marvel. He's having a nightmare about Disney. Layers, people. There's layers to this joke. And basically it's, a parody of that sequence. And at the end, I was expecting the GIF, that GIF of Rafiki throwing Simba.
Yes.
I was expecting that. I mean, it kind of happened like that, but not really.
Well, Batman throws a baby off the building. That's great.
I wanted it to be more. I wanted it to be more like the GIF, which is just very blatant, where he just kind of like drops him. This one he drops him. The other one he all out throws him.
When I was watching that, my thought, what I was thinking about before I found out it was like a nightmare with the Robin thing, was Batman is like the king of the superheroes. Really, Superman is the king of the DC superheroes, in my opinion.
Not in the movie, like not in like the movie business. That's not the case, because look how many movies Batman has. Like,
I'm thinking more about the comics, though. I guess he was like the original. He was like he's like the Mickey Mouse of the superhero world, Superman, and I guess Batman, I don't know, he's just he's like Donald Duck or Goofy. He's better. He's more interesting, but still, Superman's Superman. But I don't know. I'm sure Jerry Seinfeld would be pissed at that. So that's
I know. But yeah, so that was great. And side note, I really appreciate the multiple like styles, like animation style, not animation style, but like artistic styles in the way sometimes the characters are drawn. I really appreciate that. I was like, ooh, that's a nice like take, which is something that isn't as seen often in like 3D animation. In 2D, you have I feel like it's done a little bit more, or at least it's a little bit more blatant, a little bit more obvious. Whereas with 3D, they tend to because it is, I guess, I don't know, they tend to stick to one type of character design and style. 2D, at least in this movie, they played around with it a lot, which I really appreciated.
In that sense, it reminds me a little bit of The Boss Baby, because The Boss Baby also does this, where it experiments with animation style.
Why are you people doing this to me? Like, throwing all these movies at me that I don't want to remember. Anyway,
what does it say that this movie has many similarities to other mediocre animated films?
I wonder why. I mean, with the butts and everything. Oh god. Yeah. Okay. Oh, now you're making me do the comparisons.
Well, one good joke around this as well is when the nightmare is ending and they introduce this video to him. The VHS they present has Young Justice crossed out.
That to me, that is my favorite joke of the movie, by far. The fact that they had Young Justice written in the VHS tape and then just crossing it out and making it this like silly, like, homemade movie for Robin. That to me is brilliant. That is, like, that got a very big laugh out of the adults in the movie. Like, some guy went like, haha, Young Justice! And that was
well, we can laugh now because it's coming back, so.
Right. But again, they don't mention it. I feel like the rivalry you guys see between Steven Universe and Teen Titans Go, I feel like the actual rivalry is Young Justice and Teen Titans. And then Teen Titans people were like, we want to make the Teen Titans show, the 2003 one, but Young Justice is like taking that. I don't know. I think
I'm with you. I one thing I like about the original Teen Titans is that pretty much the Justice League, they don't exist.
Okay, we're not here to talk about that. Okay, though, that's not what I meant by making that comment. We're not here. Focus, guys. Focus. So yeah, that happens. They try to cheer Robin up they try and go to Hollywood straight up and try and get a real movie made. Jade Wilson, the director of the superhero films, tells them, Jade Wilson, funny.
That should have been a giveaway. Should have been a giveaway for her last name.
But yeah, so she tells them that she would only make a movie of the Titans if they were the last superheroes on Earth. So obviously, cue a time travel sequence.
Oh.
I need to talk about this sequence. All right, we need to talk about this.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, I really enjoyed it. It was very funny. Basically, the Teen Titans going back in time to basically save superheroes from this, like, at least for Batman, save his family. With Superman, save Krypton. Wonder Woman, it was kind of mean there, but in a way, it's like save her, because then she gets to stay in Themyscira with her family and stuff. But yeah, they save these heroes. Obviously, they're gonna come back. It's gonna be the world's gonna be like up in flames, and then it turns cruel.
Well, you forgot the one thing they did. What they did to Aquaman, they murdered him.
Oh yeah, and it had already been cruel. They basically murder Aquaman. I just on the one hand, and basically when they go back, they save Aquaman. When they have to refix their mistake, they essentially kill Batman's family.
They push his parents into the alley and shooting noises happen.
They put the pearl necklace on the mom, on Martha. I mean, look.
Don't mention that name, please.
I agree with you mentioning that it's kind of cruel, right? But I don't know if it speaks to my sense of humor, but I think this sequence is the funniest of the movie, just because I think that this is where the meta humor and the irreverence pays off the most. Like, This is where it's so absurd, like the Teen Titans playing an EDM set on the Krypton crystals.
Yeah.
dissolve them, throwing a plastic stitch ring on Aquaman to choke him to death. And like it's all like stuff like, we're doing this in a kids movie? Whoa.
See, that's it. That's just it though.
And it's the cherry on top of pushing Bruce's parents into the alley. So like there I was like, okay, I'm in. This sequence was great.
And they never fixed the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles thing, so.
But look, that's the thing though. All right? Like the very machines that they use to go back in time are freaking tricycles. Like, and we've talked about it. We've said this movie is directed towards kids between the ages of like 5 and 8 years old. Isn't this humor a little bit intense?
Well,
isn't this a little bit too much for that audience and that demographic? I'm just saying, look, this movie can't have its cake and eat it too. So, if you want to make a movie with this type of humor, then make a movie with this type of humor. Don't make a movie that's 80% humor for kids and it's directed towards kids, but then throw in a good chunk that isn't directed towards kids, but actually adults. And not in the way that's very overt, that's like very subtle and it's just a wink at the parents watching a movie with their kids and the kids, it will just fly by the kids' heads. This is pretty gruesome stuff. This isn't like a wink. This is very like intense stuff. I don't know if like a kid, I don't know if a kid should be watching that type of humor. This is like very blatantly like violent.
Well, kids probably seeing all these Batman like movies, these live action movies, and
totally. But those movies are rated PG-13, is what I'm saying. Like those, like the parents know what they're getting into. This is not that.
I'm with you that the tone of this sequence is differing from a lot of the rest of this movie. Although I do think that the cruelness pops up in other places as well.
Oh, totally.
That
the
we'll
Shia
get
LaBeouf
into.
stuff is.
Yeah, right. So like I think that it's not isolated to the sequence, but I get you that this definitely feels more adult oriented, and maybe that's why it landed more with me. Like also, there's Back to the Future mentions. Like kids aren't gonna get that. Yeah. Take On Me is playing in the background. Yeah. That's a song that hasn't been in the zeitgeist in 20 years. So like all that entire sequence, and they try to sprinkle in some kid humor in the middle to like make it palatable, like Superman shaking his baby butt and stuff like that.
And they said also, where are we going to get plutonium from Libyan terrorists? We can't find any Libyan terrorists.
Yeah,
that's a back. I know, but they actually said that in the movie Libyan terrorists in this kids movie.
Yeah, so the point is that this sequence definitely gives off the vibe that this was aimed more at the adults than it was at the kids, and I can see the complaint of this being too much of a tonal difference compared to the rest of the movie.
And I mean, and not only too much of a tonal difference, because that's like, all right, fine, whatever. Okay, you do that. But there is no, in terms of the plot, there is no point to this sequence. Like, you could take this sequence out, and you would still, and the movie wouldn't change. That's the whole point of time travel. But still, like, this sequence, like, look, most of the time when the movie's trying to, like, stretch itself out to hit, like, the 80-minute, 90-minute mark and make itself feature length, most of those, like, time-consuming wastes are not entertaining. And this movie actually makes that entertaining. So good on them. But also, this has no purpose. There's no point to this sequence in this movie. And like, if it's going to be so tonally different, if it's going to be questionable humor in terms of the demographic the movie's targeting, and it has no plot, like no plot purpose, and just is legit, like by the end of this movie, you're like, that was wasteful. Then I really don't think it needs to be in this movie. Usually one of these things checks out. One of these things is working in favor of the movie. None of them worked in favor of the movie. And for me, that makes it, as good as the sequence is on its own, for me, it's like that's it. This shouldn't have been in the movie. It really shouldn't have.
This could have just been a simple 11-minute episode of the TV series. The whole time travel thing.
Maybe, yeah. But,
yeah,
I mean, it's great. I love this. Again, it's one of my favorite parts of the movie, but it's also the one part where I can't forgive the movie for putting it in there.
And see, this is like a philosophical difference because I'm like, if it's entertaining, then sure, give me a break from the story to like give me this interesting sequence. I don't mind as long as it's interesting. Well, in other movies, like you mentioned, like this would be a chase sequence that's stretched out and there's like physical gags, but you're like, when is this going to end? But like because this doesn't get repetitive at all during the sequence, except maybe the EDM sequence you could say goes on for a little bit too long, but I still enjoyed that whole absurdity. So, like, I think that if it fulfills its purpose of being an entertaining sequence, then you can justify it. But like, it's when they get too boring or when you're like, okay, well, can we get back to the real story? If the movie makes you think that, then it's a failure. But I think, at least to me, it was fun enough where I'm like, okay, this is fine. Keep me here for a bit.
Or just could have been a song, too. I get
no songs.
No songs. No more songs. No, but here's the thing. Like, if I agree with you, if the sequence elevates the movie and makes it more entertaining and makes the movie better, then it should stay. But this movie was too long. Like, even though it was short, it felt like it was too long. It dragged a lot.
I want you to cut other stuff out of this movie.
Oh,
Don't
totally.
Cut this part.
But the thing is, like, if you look at the script, if you look at the tone, if you look at everything, the one place that doesn't fit, the one that if you want to cut time to make a movie flow and pace better, the one place that can be cut is this. Even though it's possibly the best part of the movie, it's the one thing that makes sense to cut. So, like, I understand why it's there, but like, the movie does drag. It does have pacing issues. Like, I was very bored by the end and wanted it to end.
Right.
So, like,
this sequence is not at all responsible for that, in my opinion. I think it's a lot of other stuff that gets
I don't know,
because
the thing is, if you make the movie shorter, suddenly the pacing is different. If you take something out, suddenly it's a different movie. So I wouldn't make that argument necessarily. Like, I need to see a cut of this movie without that sequence and see how it plays to see if it actually does feel as long as if it still feels as long as it is. So I wouldn't say like it's like this. I wouldn't say this sequence is completely blameless. There's always a flow. There's always a tempo a movie has, and this is part of that movie, so it's part of that tempo. And it wasn't enough. So for me, I would have taken this out. But even if it was, for me, one of the best parts of the movie.
Maybe so. The also part I liked though was the upbeat inspirational song about love, like song montage. I just love the end joke though when they hit the bird with the car.
Okay, so like that for example, that's a good joke, but the entire sequence is way too long. Cut that part out. Like that doesn't need to be there.
Like
and I'll end up
by a car.
Yes, it's a fine joke. I also laughed at Michael Bolton dying on screen. That's great. But like also following this sequence as well, we begin to get into the emotional arc, I guess, of this. I don't know if you want to get into that, Beatriz, but like I think that part drags much longer and it has more boring pieces that I think we could have cut out considering the tone of the rest of this movie.
Well, that's definitely out of character of the TV show. The TV show does not have emotional arcs, does not have emotional stories. They don't try to make you care about the characters. This movie actually does. So it's...
Yeah.
I will say, though, the emotional stuff isn't great. I mean, again, look, like, I'm just saying that even though the time travel sequence is the best of the movie, one, it doesn't fit with the demographic, and like in a way where if I were a parent and I had my kid watching that, like I would be upset. Why? I'd be like, why? How could you? Like, why would you do this? I would be like, why would you rate this PG? Like, that's not what this is. And that's all I'm saying. And as well, like the movie does drag. And even though this is one of the best things, it doesn't make sense with the plot.
I'm just thinking what you mentioned of the big three networks. I think for sure Cartoon Network is probably the most like PG-13, more so than Disney and Nickelodeon.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. Like, if that's the case, then they need to rate the movie PG-13.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. But they don't. That's the thing. Like, that doesn't have anything to do with this. The fact is, it's a PG movie. So anyway, let's just get back into this. There is an emotional turn. After fixing the time travel mistake, the pointless time travel mistake, the Titans stop Slade from using the crystal and steal it back. He escapes, but the Titans gain recognition as superheroes. Jade Wilson invites them the next day and offers to make them their movie. The Titans without Robin, cause mischief on set until they stumble upon the superheroes building a doomsday machine. They try to destroy it, but Jade and Robin intervene. Jane says it's a poorly chosen acronym for a streaming service, which is very funny. She cancels the Titans movie but offers Robin a solo one instead, and he decides to take it and decides to go solo, basically.
One problem I do have, though, if Jade's plan all along was she wanted to do a Robin solo movie and get rid of the other four, she didn't really do anything to sabotage the movie. That the other four Titans did it themselves. She didn't do nothing. They sabotaged their own selves, which I thought.
Look, Steve, 2 words: mind manipulation.
Oh, you're spoiled.
I don't think that's the whole purpose of it. I don't think that's the point. I think for me, it's more of like, why did she offer a Teen Titans movie in the first place? Like, Robin has always been very overt about wanting his own movie. Like, it was never like, oh, I want to make a Teen Titans movie. It was always, I want a movie for me. So I was always like very, like, I don't know, like, Robin in this entire movie was very annoying to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think this movie was too Robin centric? Like, how is the show? Yeah. Is the show, like, very Robin-centric?
Most of the time it is, because he's, like, the punching bag of the show. He's the character everyone, like, picks on. He's, like, everything always goes against him. He's, like, he's, like, the whipping boy of the show. So, yeah, it does get that. But unlike the original show, though, the first season was Robin-centric, and then other people got their turns. But the show is focused on Robin all the time. We don't have these seasons like the Raven season or the Beast Boy season.
Right.
You know? All I have to go off of is this movie, and like for what I get from Robin is like the classic main character needs to be leader of a ragtag group and gets frustrated, kind of similar to like they make a Guardians of the Galaxy joke earlier, and it's kind of that, right? Like the Chris Pratt character where he has to like keep the unstable people together. And so, like, I think that in this movie, he is very annoying at times. But at the same time, I think that because of the time they dedicate to Robin's character in the second half, like, the emotional stuff works for me. But at the same time, it doesn't fit the tone of the first half of the movie, which is what I struggle with. Like, if you want to cut something, I'd rather you cut the trying to shoehorn in an emotional arc for Robin than cut out good jokes.
I wonder, though, is this intentional? Slade says his plan now is to divide the Titans, divide Robin from the other Titans. I wonder if it's intentional, because pretty much that was the entire plot of season 1 of the original series. Were they trying to reference that, or is that just a coincidence?
I don't know.
It's a character trait that they put for Robin from the very beginning in this movie, right? Like, Robin wants to be solo, but like he has to deal with the rest of his group, and so like the main villain plot, it fits well with that, right? Like, okay, Robin wants that, so let's give it to him, and that way he'll be easier to deal with on his own.
I don't know about you guys. As soon as I saw the movie, when I came home, I watched an episode of the 2003 series just to get my mind at ease. So.
Yeah, but it's, I don't know. I think it's interesting how, even though like one of my criticisms is that I wanted the film to be, its humor at least, to be more realistic. I wanted to be a bit more like make fun of the movie industry. I do think one of the weakest elements of this movie is the movie industry. It's Jade Wilson's in everything. Like, yeah, you make all these references, but at the same time, like, it is so heavily tied to the more emotional stuff. It's not as funny. It does bring the film down, and they don't even do as much as they should with it. Mm-hmm. And like, even then, like, oh, it's just like, oh, it's like a streaming service. I'm like, why don't you instead make the villain, like, instead of making just like a typical villain, why don't you actually go like, oh, people don't care about superheroes anymore? Or like, I don't know, like, superheroes, like, I don't know, become like Hollywood stars, so then they get like these big like Hollywood egos and make fun of that or something. I don't know. I just don't think
Although I do like the joke that the superheroes are being distracted by making movies, so
I
Slade
love that
is.
joke.
I like that.
I like that, but I wanted it to be less of like, oh, like they're so distracted that they legit make a doomsday thing. Like, no, like they were just like, there were certain, I don't know. I wanted them, I don't know. I wanted, again, it's the same criticism. I just wanted them to be a bit smarter with this.
I love the mobile device joke, how Slade said, they're distracted, but they'll have the mobile devices turned off because they're good people, unlike some people. And he looks right at the audience.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically the movie is essentially what we expect happens. So Robin finishes his movie, but feels very lonely. And for the final scene he has to shoot, he is tricked to open the vault of the Teen Titans Tower where the crystal is being protected. Jade reveals that she's actually Slade. She escapes. Well, he escapes. Planning to use a doomsday machine to hypnotize every. Let's talk about this villain.
Say my. Okay.
Yeah. What do you want to say?
I just want to her design. When Slade created this fictional character, this female character, Jade Wilson, I'm wondering if the design of that character is supposed to be like a reference to another member of his family, like one of his ex-wives, or
I don't know.
Or what he envisions his daughter would look like grown up.
No, I think this is more like, it's not that deep, and they just probably saw that Kristen Bell had short blonde hair, and they're like, okay, we'll make her have short blonde hair. Like, it's not, I don't think it's that deep.
I thought she had silver hair like Rose Wilson does, but...
One thing I do want to point out from the sequence, one of the reasons that the emotional arc does work, I think that while they don't show the house enough, but like just the whole lingering on the house destroying itself and Robin walking through the rubble and all, like those are fine sequences to like make you feel bad for Robin, like his regrets over his decisions. So I think like that little sequence is kind of a highlight of why what they're trying to do emotionally ends up working on you, because they're kind of hammering home that like this is all Robin's fault, so these are the consequences he has to deal with. It's competent filmmaking, I think, that sequence.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you, I guess. I mean, I think it's more like, for me, it's just that from the very beginning, Robin was just off-putting. So like, I'm just like not willing to give him as much sympathy.
Right.
But I mean, it's fine. I guess it's fine. It didn't really leave. I mean, I saw this movie, I think, 2-3 days ago, and that's not even the parts that stood out to me. Like I barely remember them. It's like they happened and I'm like, okay, bye. So the Titans face Slade, but Robin gets hypnotized in the process. He is ordered to attack his friends.
That's definitely a reference to the season 1 finale of the original show, Apprentice Part 2.
Right. And the only thing that snaps him out of the trance is, of course, the homemade movie the Titans had originally made for him. They take out Slade and save the world from his control, and the film ends with Robin breaking the fourth wall, telling the kids in the audience to ask their parents where babies come from. I need to say, the minute he said that, a parent behind me just gasped. A parent behind me was like,
what a scandalous joke.
And that is what made that joke for me. I was just like, oh, the parents. And you see, and like, I could already hear the kids' minds like turning, like they're churning. Like, they're like, ooh, I'm going to ask this question. So that was pretty good.
But also all the superheroes just chanting credits.
Yeah,
the characters want the movie to end as much as we do.
Yeah, basically. But, so I guess now that we've run through this movie, I just want to quickly ask, is this, because I've been seeing this kind of conversation happening, in the reviews of this movie. Do you guys think this is the Kids Bop Kids version of Deadpool?
Well, it's very meta. So, and they make Deadpool jokes in the beginning, referencing their meta-ness to the meta-ness of Deadpool. So, like, it's, I guess that's an apt description. Also, it goes very much into the irreverent humor. But once again, that time travel sequence is the most Deadpooliness of the entire movie. Like, that's probably what ends up emphasizing that. So, I guess that's a description.
Yeah, that's an accurate description. Kids Bob version of the Deadpool movie, but it's always been a Kids Bob version of something. It's a Kids Bob version of the original series, so.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it really. Wow, like, I'm really proud of this description.
I want my season 6.
But go cry. Go find your VHS crossed out with Young Justice in the title and go watch that instead.
All right. Well, here's a question: should this have been a made-for-TV movie?
Yes.
Should it have been made for TV? I mean, it didn't. Again, it's not doing amazing numbers at the box office.
The animation did feel like a TV movie. I do say this: the animation was very similar to the show, and in its defense, I do think My Little Pony in the movie, its animation was definitely higher quality than its TV show. So
yeah, that was definitely a step up for that movie. It was definitely like that felt like a film movie, whereas this one not so much. What were you gonna say, Alex?
Well, like the only thing that sort of strikes me as theatrical is having Will Arnett as your villain. Like that's the only thing that really, like, and having him for a long time. Like even Nicolas Cage, like given that he has like 5 lines, like I think you could get him for a TV movie. But like Will Arnett for a full stint like that, I think would require it to be a theatrical nature. Yeah. And Will Arnett is good in this role, so like I think that at least is a reason, but otherwise I think that a lot of this felt made for TV, especially like the opening sequence especially did not give me hope that this was going to be good, because like that felt very straight out of a something I would expect to watch on a normal Teen Titans Go episode. But like other fight sequences, especially like Slade in the big robot thing, or like when they go totally out there with the inspirational song about life and they have like rainbows and narwhals and stuff.
I love that.
Like I guess that requires more upscaled animation. So there's points where I see it, but at the same time I think that you could have made this movie with a made-for-TV style.
I have a question.
Quality.
Did Batman have any lines in this movie? I don't
think he did.
No.
I don't think he spoke. Which is funny, because it's like, all right, like you'll have Will Arnett, but you won't have him speak for Batman.
It credits Jimmy Kimmel as the voice of Batman, and...
Really?
On Wikipedia, at least.
That's probably a joke credit, then.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he spoke, so interesting.
Hey, you know what else Jimmy Kimmel is in? The Boss Baby.
Oh my God. Guys, enough. We are leaving that movie out. No more. No, one more mention of that movie and we are ending this podcast early. And that means we won't get to talk about the most interesting thing about this movie.
The short?
No, but we will talk about the short, but not that. But last thing before we get into the good stuff. Do you think, what is a more faithful adaptation of the Teen Titans? This or the live action Teen Titans TV show trailer that we got?
Are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
No, we're not. Sorry.
Darn.
I haven't seen that yet.
Good.
But when you say adaptation of Teen Titans, you mean the 2003 TV series or the comics?
Neither. I guess the comics or the both. I don't know. Doesn't matter. That was like a joke. It was a joke and a jab at the Teen Titans live action TV show.
Only me and Beatriz got.
Basically. Anyway, let's go. Okay, fine. Let's go to the best moment of this movie. What I paid money to see, essentially, which is the mid-credit scene.
Oh, you paid money just for that? I'm so sorry for you.
I know. I'm so mad. I mean, look, I have a question about it, because the mid-credit scene is essentially the 2003 Teen Titans showing up again, saying, we found a way back. So that hints, I don't know what that hints at. A TV show, a movie, a TV movie, I don't know what it hints at.
Some people are speculating a crossover with Teen Titans Go.
Oh, no, not a crossover. No.
Well, hasn't Teen Titans Go already done a crossover? Like, wasn't there one where they watched an original Teen Titans episode or something?
That's more of Teen Titans Abridged. It's not really a crossover.
Yeah, but my point is crossover wouldn't be something that moves the needle because they've already done that in the show.
Yeah. I mean, but here's my thing. Don't you guys think this would have been better had it been like a reveal like Comic-Con or something? I feel like it would have created more buzz. I think having it be a mid-credit scene, suddenly it's like shrouded in spoiler talk. So like reviews can only talk about it like spoilers. You can't talk about this after until like you see the movie. I feel like it's not making as much buzz as it should be because it's like where it was placed with this movie, where I feel like had it been like So had it like, I don't know, been like something else, say for
Maybe
Comic-Con or whatever, I feel like it would have been better.
Well, in an earlier interview, Tara Strong did sort of hint, if you see the movie, if the movie does well, then we might get a season 6. So I think maybe that was hinting at this.
I don't know. I feel like had it been something that was like teased had this little snippet been at Comic-Con and people lost their minds and created buzz for it, that would have made a better chance for it to have like a season 6 than say, depending on this movie that's for an audience that isn't the designated audience for Teen Titans.
Well, the audience who wants a season 6 of Teen Titans, most of them hate this show to begin with. Yeah,
like they're not going to go see this movie. So that's what I mean.
I think also like my take on it is just they don't have a plan. Like they're not dedicating themselves. Like, okay, we're gonna do this. Like it's just like throwing it out there. Like the adults who are watching this, let's just throw them a bone. Like they like the original Teen Titans, right? Let's show that scene. But like I don't think that this is actually meant with any concrete meaning in mind, which is why giving it a mid-credit scene to me is appropriate, because it's just like whatever. Like that's what a mid-credit scene usually is. It's just like a random extra thing you throw in as like something that didn't fit in the movie, and that's basically what this is to me. Like people speculate like, okay, this means that if enough people watch, then a new season will come up. Like I don't get that at all. Like the entire scene is just the characters showing up and saying, "Okay, we found a way back." But like, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. So it's a credit scene. Well, why give it this much attention?
Well, on the show, it's established though the multiverse in Teen Titans Go, and there's one of the verses is the original 2003 series. So
okay, sure, but the movie doesn't talk about that. So like, this is
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I will say that, if the purpose is like, it wouldn't make sense to like, oh, Teen Titans Go has to do well in the movie. Like the Teen Titans Go movie has to do well in order for us to get season 6. That wouldn't make a lot of sense, because if that's the case, then that would mean that we would get more Teen Titans Go, not more of something that's so tonally and visually different. So I don't think.
It's like they were using the movie.
When Tara Strong said that, all I'm saying is all she wants is for her movie to do well. That has nothing to do with the Teen Titans 2003 series.
Well, I don't think she would have said that if she wasn't instructed. If like to higher ups, like all the voice actors to say that. So, because the voice actors, they got these confidentiality clauses, so they had to be very tight-lipped on stuff. So they can't just loosely say stuff, whatever, or allow permission.
That's what I mean. Like that's why I don't think that she's saying that for any other reason other than I want this movie to do well. I don't think she's. It's more marketing than it is like for Teen Titans Go, not like for Teen Titans 2003.
It's like Warner Brothers was holding season 6 hostage.
I don't know. Because here's the thing,
in that sense, I think you're right in using that phrase, because I feel like I've heard the Teen Titans season 6 might be happening soon. I feel like I've heard that for several years. So like, I think that's just a thing that always floats around.
Well, if there's season 6, Hopefully they maybe adapt some of those later storylines in the Teen Titans Go comics adaptation of the original show, like having when Ravager joins the crew or other stuff. Like
more importantly, is there a Teen Titans Go to the movie sequel?
If it is, I hope it focuses on another Titan, just like the old TV show. Like season 1 was Robin, I guess. Season 2, the sequel would be Beast Boy and Terra, and part 3 would be Cyborg, part 4 would be Raven, part 5
we're not. Look, I don't even think we're getting a sequel. We're not getting 5 movies. No, like I don't think we're gonna get a sequel.
This is the Lord of the Rings of Cartoon Network. You got to stretch this out for 8 hours of theatrical content right here.
But no, seriously,
I the bone and have the next one focus on Starfire.
No, I don't. I just don't think we're gonna get it. I don't think it didn't make enough money. It's not gonna make enough money. Like opening weekend is so crucial for these movies. I mean, maybe if it does have a longevity and it manages to maintain 10 million next week and the week after that, and there's no drop off, then yes, then maybe we'll get a sequel. But if it does drop off next week and we get, instead of 10 million, another 10 million, we get like 5 million or 2, like if it drops off anything, it just means it's going to keep dropping off. And I don't think it's going to make it. I really don't.
It should not have opened the same 1 year after the Emoji Movie, the same weekend. That weekend slot is cursed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the animated short very briefly because we're already running a little bit long. So there was a DC Supergirls Supergirls? Is that what it's called?
DC Superhero Girls.
Yes, DC Superhero Girls animated short that happened right before. So what did you guys think of it? Give me your thoughts, Steve. I know that you've been itching to talk about this.
All right, I'm the one who's seen the webisodes of the original DC Superhero Girls, which is vastly different than this. And I'm also very familiar with Lauren Faust from the My Little Pony fame. And it's very short. I can't really judge it. Not much happened, but it looked okay. I loved Barbara Gordon, like her design and she's very Twilight Sparkle-like. So definitely excited for that.
I will say as well that like this was too short to really give me a feel for what kind of show this even is. I got very annoyed when the short cut off right before an action sequence was about to happen. Like, okay, you got there, let's just see the fighting. It's like, no, that's where it ends. Like, what? So all I saw was Batgirl trying to get to the fight.
And I'm wondering,
but it was okay as like an introductory short because also when you're watching a movie and you see a short of something you don't expect. It's like, okay, well, as long as it's not too long, I don't really mind. And, like, it was animated fine. There were a couple of good jokes in the beginning between Barbara and the Wonder Woman and Green Lantern.
Yeah,
it was inoffensive.
I take this over, like, the Olaf Christmas special, which was the
okay, but that is no one deserves to be compared with that. Like, that is its own, like, bag of worms. Let's leave Olaf out of this. But yeah, I mean, it was nice. It was cute. But I don't know. I just feel like, and this is something that sometimes bugs me a little bit when seeing these things, like these all-female things. Because like, for instance, like Star Wars has its own version, Forces of Destiny. But the thing with Star Wars is like, not once does it dumb down the characters or completely exclude them from the universe that they're living in. It just makes it female focused, right? It's just, but that's as much as it goes. It still maintains like the essence of the character. It doesn't dumb them down. It doesn't change them. It's still this capable person. The thing is, it gives the spotlight to the female characters because more often than not, they don't get the spotlight. With this animated short, I just couldn't help but feel like it was doing that. It wasn't dumbing them down. It was making them seem incompetent in a way that you wouldn't get otherwise. And I don't know. I just feel like instead of giving me like an all-female thing, like I appreciate the sentiment, but also like don't do that. Give me a capable like female character. Give me a focus on her. And if you want to give me a focus on all these other characters, but don't give me that. Very recently, Marvel like dropped a trailer for its own female kind of centered thing. And again, it doesn't dumb them down. It's just girls being human and being fun. This to me read as making femininity something silly, which is not what femininity is. And this making it be like, ooh, like girls and whatever, and it's like pink, and it's like that's like
yeah.
Like, I don't know, like, I wanted them to go more Totally Spies.
They could.
Than what they did. Like, Totally Spies embraces femininity, embraces makeup and fashion and all this stuff. But these girls are actually but they have a mind. They're not just mindless. And this show makes them mindless in a way. And I just, again, it was very short, so I can't very much, but like, from the tone, like, if this is the first impression I get from this show, I am not impressed. If anything, I'm annoyed.
Hollywood really should take notes from Japan on how to do this stuff. They know how to do it most of the time.
I mean, but but that doesn't make sense because like they've done like again, Star Wars is doing it right. Marvel from that very short trailer clip that we saw from Marvel did so much more and did so much more right and landed in the right footing than this short did. So I wouldn't say that Japan does it better. There is no competition in this. It's simple. Like DC just I don't think is doing it better. I don't like what this is.
I'm interested to see Supergirl's character. That's her new design. That interests me a little bit. So I kind of want to see a full episode first before I can really judge this.
Oddly enough, we talk about dumbing down, but like this short was before Teen Titans Go to the movies, right? Which is like just the epitome of making these characters like go down to lowbrow humor. So like when you juxtapose that, like it didn't look that way to me at first, but I can after you explaining it, I can see a bit better like why that would be interpreted that way. But like putting it next to Teen Titans Go, like in the sense, it's actually a good strategy, right? It's like
it can't be dumber than Teen Titans Go, but also I don't know, but I mean, again, maybe it's because like I can like separate the two, and I'm like, okay, this is one thing, that's another thing, and it's like I don't know, I was underwhelmed by it, and as a woman who is very into superheroes, I was very annoyed with it. I was like, this is like my younger self would be turned off by it. Mm-hmm. Like if they're trying to get, like, I don't know, I just feel like there's this idea of what it's like this like screams to me as something of, oh, this is what little girls like, instead of actually looking at what little girls like. Like, even Barbie, right? Barbie, like, in her, like, vlogs that she does, that to me is so much better and more sophisticated. And you'd think that Barbie is the epitome of this type of thing, and in reality, she's not. She's, like, it's actually, like, really cool and interesting. So it's like, it's just, once again, it's it's like people misunderstand, thinking that young girls aren't worth sophisticated stories, even in a color palette that's filled with pink. And that to me, and that annoys me a lot.
I get you. So, though another show that kind of does it better too is My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. I want to check that show out more. Most of the time it does it well. They don't make a big deal as a bunch of girl-centric characters.
Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I can't. I don't know if I can get into My Little Pony. No offense.
Or do you spin off the Equestria Girls? That's probably maybe a better example.
But but yeah. I think that does it for this podcast. I think we went on a little bit longer than I wanted. I wanted this one to be under an hour. I don't know if that's gonna happen. But yeah. So you can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Taylor, aka Needle. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Andy, and Hugh. Thanks again for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
The Alex bids you the farewell, the listeners.
I'll keep that in.